The air in downtown Manhattan buzzed with electricity. It was the kind of night where everything felt larger than life, where the city lights blurred into an endless glow, and the skyline seemed to hum with an unseen pulse. Inside the Grand Wellington Hotel, the most exclusive ballroom in New York, was filling up with some of the most powerful figures in the country. Tonight was Donald Trump's much-anticipated fundraising gala, an event designed to cement his political comeback and remind his supporters that he was still the dominant force in American politics. The ballroom itself was a gold and marble spectacle, its towering chandeliers casting a warm, golden light over the sea of wealthy donors, media elites, and Republican power players who had gathered for the occasion. Waiters in crisp black suits carried trays of champagne, while journalists maneuvered through the crowd, angling for exclusive interviews with the night's biggest names. And then there was her. Among the swirl of tuxedos and designer gowns, Alyssa Monroe stood out, but not in the way most people at this event did. Dressed in a plain black dress and scuffed boots, she looked deliberately out of place. Her presence wasn't an accident, nor was it a coincidence. Alyssa was here for one reason only: to make a scene. At 35 years old, Alyssa had dedicated her life to progressive activism, known in certain circles for her relentless social media campaigns and viral protests. She had been arrested at climate change demonstrations, thrown out of Senate hearings for interrupting politicians, and once even managed to sneak into a live CNN broadcast holding a sign that read, "Fascists don't deserve platforms." But tonight was her biggest stunt yet. Inside her small crossbody bag, tucked neatly beneath a folded coat, was a banner that she had spent days perfecting. The message was bold, unhinged, designed to go viral. Barron Trump is a Russian spy. She could already picture it: the gasps, the camera flashes, the moment of pure, televised humiliation for Trump. If she did it right, if she timed it perfectly, it would explode across social media, spinning into a storm of controversy that would dominate news cycles for days. Alyssa had spent weeks preparing for this. She had studied security layouts, figured out the best entry points, and even brushed up on her acting skills to blend in among the guests. It had been surprisingly easy to slip into the event. Fake credentials, a confident smile, and a well-rehearsed story about being a political correspondent had been enough to get her past the first round of security. Now, she was inside. Trump was about to speak. The world was about to watch. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. This was her moment. Little did she know, it would not go as planned. Alyssa Monroe had been planning this moment for weeks. Every detail, every scenario, every possible reaction, she had run them through her mind 1,000 times. And yet, as she stood inside the Wellington Hotel ballroom, surrounded by the very people she despised the most, something about the moment felt surreal. She had dreamed of being here, not in admiration, but in opposition. This was enemy territory, a glittering fortress built for the wealthy elite, the kind of place where deals were made behind closed doors, where policies that destroyed lives were discussed. Over $400 bottles of wine. Alyssa adjusted her posture, trying to look comfortable despite the growing nausea in her stomach. She was standing among some of the most powerful conservatives in the country: business moguls, politicians, and media executives, all dressed in their perfectly tailored suits, their laughter smooth and polished, their smiles too perfect to be real. And then, there was Trump. He wasn't on stage yet, but he was there, standing by the VIP section, laughing loudly, shaking hands with billionaires, nodding as they whispered God knows what in his ear. He looked untouchable. Alyssa felt her fingers twitch. She had spent years despising this man. He was everything she stood against: greedy, corrupt, arrogant beyond reason. And yet, seeing him this close, watching him move through the room with absolute confidence, made her anger burn hotter than ever. No. Focus. You have a job to do. She took a deep breath and glanced around, scanning the exits. She needed to know her escape routes. One at the back of the ballroom, one near the catering area. Security guards stationed at both. She would have seconds, maybe less, before they reacted. Her fingers brushed against the bag slung across her torso, feeling the fabric of her hidden banner inside. It was ready. She just had to wait for the perfect moment. A waiter in a black uniform passed by, balancing a tray of champagne. Alyssa grabbed a glass and took a sip, not because she wanted it, but because holding it made her look like she belonged. Then, she listened. All around her, conversations buzzed with political strategy, campaign donations, and the inevitable war on woke. Can you believe they're still talking about climate change? It's a hoax, always has been. My company just finalized a massive tax break deal. Trump's going to love it. They say he's losing support, but look at this room. He's still got the power. He's still the king. Alyssa swallowed down her disgust. These people were clueless. They had no idea what life was like for ordinary Americans. They lived in their own little world, built on money and influence, where problems were things that happened to other people. And tonight, they would all get a wake-up call. She could feel the anticipation crawling up her spine. The speech was about to begin. Donald Trump was about to take the stage. Alyssa steeled herself. It was almost time. Almost time for the protest that would shake the world. The energy in the Wellington Hotel ballroom had shifted. The dull hum of elite conversations faded into an electric anticipation as the lights dimmed slightly, signaling the arrival of the man everyone had been waiting for. A hush spread across the room as Donald Trump stepped onto the stage. His signature confident strut unwavering. He adjusted his suit jacket, smoothed his tie, then leaned into the microphone with that self-assured smirk. "Wow," he said, scanning the packed crowd. What a crowd. Thunderous applause. Alyssa gritted her teeth, her fingers gripping the edges of her bag. She needed to time this perfectly. Trump's voice boomed through the speakers. They said this event wasn't going to happen, he continued, shaking his head. They said we were done, finished, that people didn't love Trump anymore. He stretched his arms wide, gesturing to the overflowing ballroom. But look around, folks. Look at this. Look at the energy. They were wrong. Again. More cheers, whistles, applause. Alyssa's stomach twisted. These people weren't just supporting him, they were adoring him. She felt her heart pound. Now, do it now. With one swift motion, she yanked the banner out of her bag, unfolding it in one quick, calculated movement. Then she lifted it high above her head. Barron Trump is a Russian spy. The impact was instantaneous. A split second of stunned silence, then chaos. Gasps rippled through the room like a shockwave. Heads snapped toward her. Some guests let out horrified exclamations, while others muttered in confusion. Alyssa stood tall, arms raised high, making sure the cameras caught every inch of her message. Security sprung into action, the nearest guards already pushing through the stunned crowd toward her. She braced herself. But then something she didn't expect happened. Trump laughed. Not a forced, awkward chuckle. A full-bodied, roaring laugh. He threw back his head, shaking with amusement. Alyssa froze. This wasn't how he was supposed to react. "Oh wow," Trump said, still laughing as he leaned on the podium. "Would you look at this? We've got a genius in the room, everybody." The audience erupted in laughter. Alyssa's stomach dropped. Trump squinted at the banner, pretending to study it like a confused professor. Wait, hold on. Barron is a Russian spy?" He turned to the crowd, shaking his head. "Folks, I gotta tell you, I've heard a lot of fake news, but this is a new one." More laughter, clapping. Alyssa's hands shook as security grabbed her by the arms, dragging her toward the exit. "Wait, I'm not done," she shouted, trying to twist away. Trump smirked, watching her struggle. "No, sweetheart, you're done." The crowd went wild. As the guards hauled her toward the door, Trump leaned into the mic one last time. "Oh, and tell your TikTok followers I said hi." The ballroom erupted, cameras flashed, and just like that, the moment she thought would humiliate Trump had made him stronger. By the time Alyssa Monroe was shoved through the gilded double doors of the Wellington Hotel, the night had already spiraled far beyond her control. The second the security guards released her onto the sidewalk, the reality of what had just happened hit her like a tidal wave. A group of reporters and photographers, who had been waiting outside for guests and VIPs, immediately swarmed toward her. Camera lights flashed in her face. Microphones were shoved within inches of her mouth, and voices shouted over one another, desperate for a quote. "Miss Monroe, what was your message tonight? Are you part of an organized protest? Why did you target Barron Trump? Do you regret your actions?" Alyssa's hands trembled as she tried to steady herself. This was supposed to be her moment. The moment where she stood defiant, powerful, where her words shook the internet and forced people to see the truth. But instead, she was the one who had been humiliated. The doors of the Wellington Hotel slammed shut behind her, cutting off the last echoes of Trump's victorious laughter. Alyssa clenched her fists. She needed to salvage this. She needed to say something, anything, before the media twisted this narrative completely against her. But before she could speak, something far worse happened. A notification buzzed on her phone. Her stomach sank. She had dozens, no, hundreds of new messages. She fumbled for her phone, her fingers numb as she opened Twitter, and that's when she saw it. TikTok activistifuls, debetaralisa. Hashtag Trump owns the left. Her face turned pale. There, at the top of her feed, was a viral video of her protest, except it wasn't being framed the way she had imagined. She had wanted to expose Trump. Instead, the internet was mocking her. Someone had edited the footage into a highlight reel of her failure, showing her triumphantly holding up the banner, then cutting to Trump's booming laughter and the crowd cheering as security dragged her away. The caption: "Liberal activist tries to own Trump, gets destroyed instead." The video had already hit 3 million views in less than an hour. Alyssa's breathing quickened. This can't be happening. She clicked on the comment section, her vision blurring as she scrolled through the replies. "This is the best thing I've ever seen." She thought she had him, and he turned it right back on her. Lamau, the left is so desperate. They're literally making up conspiracies about a teenager now. It's embarrassing. She wanted to make him look bad, and now she's the meme. This is gold. Trump is a master at handling these idiots. They never learn. Alyssa's chest tightened. The media wasn't talking about Trump's corruption or his scandals. They were talking about her failure, and worst of all, even some of her own progressive followers were turning on her. "Girl, why would you go after Barron? This is not the move. I support activism, but this just made us look stupid. We could have used this moment for something real. Instead, we got a circus." Alyssa's hands curled into fists. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, to tell them that this was supposed to be a statement about nepotism, corruption, power dynamics. But none of that mattered now. The narrative had already spun out of her hands. She had become the joke, and Donald Trump? He had just cemented his dominance again. The next morning, Alyssa woke up to the worst-case scenario. The video had now hit 10 million views across multiple platforms. Conservative news outlets were feasting on the story. Fox News headline: "Liberal activist loses it at Trump event, instantly regrets it." Daily Wire: "Trump handles unhinged protester like a boss." Ben Shapiro's podcast: "This is why the left can't win." But what hurt the most was how her own side was crumbling around her. Liberal news outlets weren't defending her. Progressive activists weren't rallying behind her, because even to them this looked bad. She had just given Trump's campaign more fuel, and the worst part, Trump knew it. That afternoon, he tweeted a video clip of the event with his own caption: "They're losing their minds, folks. This is the best they've got." Hashtag Imaga double quotes. ID racked up 500,000 likes in an hour. Alyssa's stomach sank deeper into the void. She had lost. That night, Alyssa sat alone in her tiny Brooklyn apartment, staring at her laptop screen. The video looped again and again, her standing there, holding up the banner, Trump laughing, the crowd cheering as security dragged her out. She buried her face in her hands. This wasn't supposed to happen. She had spent years fighting Trump, calling him an idiot, saying he was a joke, but in that moment he had played her like a fool. He knew how to flip the script, how to make himself look untouchable, and she had walked right into his trap. The realization hit her like a train. Donald Trump wasn't stupid. He was a master at this. She had thought she could expose him. Instead, she had given him exactly what he wanted. And for the first time in her life, Alyssa Monroe had to face the hardest truth of all. She had underestimated Donald Trump, and it had cost her everything. Alyssa Monroe had always believed that the truth, spoken loudly enough, could shake the world. That night, as she sat alone in her dimly lit apartment, scrolling through the endless flood of mockery, memes, and think pieces dissecting her failure, she realized something far more unsettling. The truth didn't matter if the moment was lost. She had gone into that ballroom thinking she could humiliate Trump, but in the end, she had only played into his hands. The headlines weren't about corruption, power, or accountability. They were about her. And Trump? He had walked away untouched, stronger than before, feeding off the chaos she had unknowingly gifted him. For the first time in her career, she wasn't just another activist trying to expose the system. She was the example of how not to do it. And as the world moved on to its next controversy, she was left with a bitter, unshakable thought. Sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can do is give your enemy the stage. And this brings us to the end of the story. Thank you for watching till the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, don't hesitate to like the video and share it with your friends too. Subscribe our channel and turn on the notification bell for more fascinating stories. Have a nice day.